So today I want to talk about the future of innovation because we do live in a fast-changing world, and innovation is everybody's business now. It's no longer something that you can just leave to an R&D department or a marketing department to do all your research for you. Innovation is something that everybody in your organization is responsible for, whether you are the business owner, whether you're a leader within the organization, or whether you're somebody who works in a team. Innovation is part of what you have to do now. So in fact, it's one of the 10 skills that the Institute for the Future identified as future work skills. So they were looking at skills that can't easily be automated, can't easily be outsourced, and if you want to future-proof your own career and your workplace, what are the skills that you need for yourself and your team? And innovation was one of those 10 skills. They didn't call it innovation. This is the list of all the 10 skills, and so they got this kind of fancy, funky names for some of these, but the one that we're talking about today is the one which is novel and adaptive thinking, which essentially is about creativity, problem solving, innovation. So we're going to talk about that today, and my angle on innovation, as it is with almost everything I talk about, is that the future of innovation is the same as the future of leadership. It's all about individuals and individuals innovating. So as much as you want your whole team to be innovative, you're looking at individuals in your team to come up with great ideas and put those ideas into action. So a lot of what I'm talking about today is about how to create an environment for innovation for your team members. And if you work by yourself in your own business, or your team isn't in the same office as you, you'll get some ideas for yourself to create an environment for you to be more innovative, as well as for even your remote team members to be involved in the innovation. Okay, so we're looking at this one of these 10 skills, which is called novel and adaptive thinking, but broadly, we're going to talk about innovation. Let me start with a little question. I just want to get you used to having your hands on the buzzer, pens of the fingers of the keyboard. So let me ask you a question about innovation, and I'll ask you about 3 different kinds of innovation. So these 3 have something in common. Let me explain what they are. Amazon Prime is Amazon.com's membership service. So you pay, I think it's $99 a year, and you get free shipping, you get lower prices, you get all these other benefits that normal Amazon customers don't have. Gmail is many of us are probably already using Gmail. It's Google's email service used by millions of people around the world. And then McCafes, which I'm sure some people here will know about and some people may not know about, but it's the idea of McDonald's cafes kind of service. So what do those 3 things have in common? And I'll give you the chance to type in the question box what do you think those 3 things have in common. So please go ahead now. Okay, so they are all innovations, and that's right. They're all customer focused. Yep, that's true. They are all customer focused, but that's not the answer I'm looking for here. There is something else. Okay, I'll just give you a couple more minutes, a few more seconds to type in. They developed on existing services. They built on existing services, so that is definitely one thing that they did. Marie said that. Al says they've got a membership option. Yeah, I guess so. Like Gmail is a subscription service, so you can pay a membership service for that. I'm not sure about McCafes. Let me tell you the one that I'm looking for specifically here, because those are true, but the one I'm looking for here is that, or the point I want to make here, is that all of these ideas came from actually, let me read one other from John, their specialized service of the overall company. And Al says, oh, you get a loyalty card from McCafes. Yeah. So the one I particularly want to point out here is that all these innovations came not from head office, but they came from employees. So Amazon Prime was suggested by one of the employees. Gmail was created in Google's famous 20% time, where the engineers got time to go off and do whatever they wanted. And McCafe was, in fact, developed by a McDonald's franchisee in Melbourne, and now it's been adopted by McDonald's all around the world. So that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about employee-driven innovation. And in fact, that is what it's called in some places. It's called EDI, employee-driven innovation. And so I want to talk about that in 3 broad areas. So how do you create an environment where employees are more likely to innovate? And I like to use this metaphor of fire. So fire needs 3 things. It needs fuel, a spark, and then oxygen. So it needs fuel, which is like creating the space for the fire for your innovation. So it's creating the environment for innovation. That's what fuels your innovation. You need something that'll ignite a spark to start the innovation going, and then you need oxygen to fan the flames. And if you think about the way that a fire works, innovation metaphorically can work the same way. So I'm going to give you, we're not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but I'm going to give you some practical ideas in each of these three areas. So creating the space, igniting a spark, and then fanning the flames. So we're going to look at all those three areas. I'd like you to put your hand on your heart and do this poll for me as well. So I want you to think about, is your organization really innovative? Don't answer it in the question box because I'm going to show you a poll in a sec. So let me launch that poll now. And you'll see it coming up on your screen. And rather than just asking you to rate how innovative it is, I want you to answer your poll based on, as you can see here, can you honestly say that our customers say we're an innovative company? Can you say that the world sees us, so we've got a reputation as being innovative? Is it that our team members, our staff say so? Is it that in our industry that we're known as innovative? Or if it's none of those, then I'd like you to tick no. And you can, as some of you have already noticed, you can tick more than one option here as well, because it may be that the world thinks so, your customers do, and your staff do as well. So, okay, great, thank you. Most people have responded. I'll just leave the poll open. So we've got up to about 75% of people have voted, and I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds. So get your votes in if you haven't yet. And then I'll share the results, which are quite interesting. It's quite interesting because I have a bias towards which I think are the most valuable responses. And yep, in fact, the two that I thought would be the highest, the two that I thought would be the highest, one of them is. So let me share the results. Okay, so first of all, love the fact that most people, almost most people, so 44% of people say yes, our customers think that we're innovative. Great, because customers do like to work with people who are innovative. And the second one is that the highest, in fact, is that in our industry we're considered innovative. Again, that's really positive. The one warning about that is that innovation doesn't only happen from within your industry, and in fact 80% of Australian executives, according to an Accenture survey, they reckon that in the next 3 years, the big innovation or the big disruptors in their industry are going to come from people who aren't their traditional competitors. So they're either bright new startups or from organizations completely outside their industry. So it's great that you are innovative in your industry, just don't rest on your laurels. Okay, and there's only a few who say that yes, we've got a reputation worldwide or in the general public, and it's nice to see that there's 22% who say our staff say that we're innovative, because today is going to be very much about your staff, and I hope that if I was to run this program again in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, and you put the ideas into action from today, that number would go up, because that's very much about what we're talking about here. How do we create an innovative environment for your staff, which then escalates to your customers, your industry, and then the world. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Thank you for participating. Thank you for playing. Okay, so let's look at these three areas. So we're going to look at, as I said, in order, how do you create the space for innovation? How do you ignite a spark? And how do you fan the flame? So let's start off with that first one, which is creating the space for innovation. And when I say space, I'm not only talking about beanbags in the office. I'm talking about how do you create an environment where your team members are comfortable and are encouraged to innovate. And you can see here this quotation from Winston Churchill towards the end of the Second World War, when the Americans asked him what he needs, what the UK needs to finish off the war effort or to help with their war effort in Europe, and this is what he said: give us the tools and we will finish the job. So what we're looking at here is what sort of tools are you creating, and tools, by tools I mean not just the productivity tools and physical things, but what sort of environment are you creating that will encourage and foster innovation. And broadly, I reckon you should be looking at giving your team members permission to innovate, give them a focus for their innovation, and make sure that there's time available for innovation as well. So the different businesses will do this differently. because we've only got a short period of time today, I would just want to share one idea that I think will be the most useful if you don't already have an organization where your staff think it's very innovative. This is probably the biggest thing that you can do. And it's this principle that habit trumps discipline. What I mean by that is that you've got habits in your life, whether it's brushing your teeth or checking Facebook every 5 minutes. So some of them aren't positive, but some of them are. And those habits you don't need to be motivated, don't need to be disciplined, you don't need to have a running start to get going on them, and they just happen automatically. And how can you create innovation as a habit in your business, in your organization? And I reckon you should be looking at that, because otherwise it's too hard. It's easy to say, okay, we'll innovate tomorrow because we're too busy today, but of course tomorrow never comes, because of course you're going to be just as busy tomorrow. So create habits around innovation. So I'm going to share 3 things with you. One of them is a habit of time. So make time for innovation. For example, there's a company called URX, and what they do is they knock off work early every Friday afternoon. They knock off their regular work early, and they have a couple of hours at the end of the day, and 1 hour is set aside, which they call contrarian office hour. And the idea is this is an opportunity for anyone in the team to bring up any ideas, any problems, issues, concerns, any even suggestions for improvement, without any fear of being penalized for it or criticized for it. And the idea is to come up with stuff that they can fix in the business. My friend and innovation expert, Niels Vesk, he suggests to his clients another idea, that whenever they have their weekly staff meeting, they set aside 5 or 10 minutes to just go around the room and everybody shares something, some innovation that they've seen, or some clever idea that they've seen in their life, not necessarily at work, but in their life, and they just share it, and it just gives people an environment to share interesting stuff, and other people can then pick up on that and then build on it, and perhaps it's an idea that the business can use. So set aside your time. Decide what your creative time is going to be. For me, I set aside Fridays as non-client related work. So I do my client work Monday to Thursday, and Friday is working on the business rather than in the business. Matt Church, one of my friends, he says that you should do one big thing before 8 a.m. every day. Doesn't have to be innovation, but it's get one of your things crossed off your to-do list, one of the big important things. Other people set aside, I know somebody here, Anne, I'm sure she doesn't mind me sharing, she makes Mondays her marketing Monday. So innovation and marketing are quite different, but the principle should be the principle I think you get. Set aside time for innovation. Here's the next thing you should do is put some money from your budget aside for innovation. One of my mates, as another speaker, Michael Harrison, he gave me this idea. He sets aside every month a little bit of money into a gadgets fund, technology and gadgets, because he, like I, has to be on the leading edge of technology, and so that money is put aside so that, and I adopted this idea as well myself. So that money is put aside to spend on a gadget, even if I don't need it. The money is put aside, so it means that I can buy it and I can experiment with it and I can share it, I can use it in my business, even if I don't need it. So do you have money set aside in your budget for innovation? Some businesses say that anyone who's got an idea, you've got a budget of up to $200 that you can spend on that idea, just to get to the stage where you can build a prototype or share it with the team or just do some initial tests. So do you have money set aside for innovation? Because only then if it's not funded, then it's very difficult for the innovation to happen. And the funding comes from either time or money. Generally, those are the 2 biggest resources that you have to allocate. And the third one is, do you have the right people for innovation to happen? Now, ideally, those would be the people in your team. And you should definitely, if you're a leader or manager, talk to people in your team, either individually or on a group basis, about their ideas, and I've shared some ways to do that already, but also, are you bringing other people into your team? LinkedIn, for example, they bring in regular speakers to come and talk to all the LinkedIn staff, not about LinkedIn, but they talk about their area of expertise. you could set up your own group. So, for example, in Perth, I run a monthly business book club and discussion group where we get together. There's a group of about 12 people. They come to my house, and we just have some nibblies and drinks, and we talk about a book. And it's an interesting discussion, and for me, I get a lot of value because it's people from lots of different areas, from high schools, from healthcare, from education, from there's a mortgage broker, there's a lawyer, there's a business entrepreneur, and we're all talking about something that interests us, but coming at it from our own perspective. So have you got these habits in your business with time, money, and people? So I want to quickly stop and just check if there's any comments or questions about any of this. Okay, so what sort of habits are you creating, or what sort of habits do you think you could create, or questions about how to make it happen? What about no technology days? I'm happy to keep this anonymous, but no, I won't bother keeping it anonymous unless you particularly want me to. So Mark says, what about no technology days? So some people do that. So they to remove interruptions and distractions, they set up a no technology day. So they make it a day that's set aside specifically for innovation. Now, I love the principle, and whether you do it through no technology or through some other means, it's great. Just choose to do it that way. There's a software company called Redgate, and what they did was they set aside one day, which I forget what they called it, but it was like sweat the small stuff. So they set aside a day where people could work on these little annoying things in their day that would cost them a little bit of time. It may be just a little bit of a process. It may be some spreadsheet that they had to work on, which was a little bit annoying, and they got the time and they got that day set aside to fix it, and they had permission to work on little things rather than on big things. So that's an example of just get the right principle in place. So get the right mindset for your innovation habit. So yes, again, I think that's a great idea to do it and make it a habit. So it happens automatically rather than you having to set aside time for it. Okay, great. So let me move on to the second one. And the second one is actually igniting a spark. So this is how do you create get the innovation started? So you've created the environment for it. How do you get it started? And for this, the idea I want to share with you is, if you look at innovation, there are different kinds of innovation. And broadly, I want to share with you that there are probably three kinds of innovation that any team can do. Obviously, if you're working in a large technology company, there's certain huge kinds of innovation that you're heading towards, but any team can do these three types of innovation. And if you think about your starting point as A and you're going to Z or Z, the three types are, the first of all, A to B, or bit by bit innovation. So these are the little things that you can do to make your workplace better, to make your products or services better. The second kind is what I call A to G innovation, or goal-oriented innovation. And you might set aside, say, a 90-day project, which is not a client project, but it's an innovation project. And that's something that you run as a project with milestones and deadlines and resources and people allocated to it, and you have celebrations along the way and so on. It's a little bit more than individuals doing bit-by-bit innovation. And when you have goal-oriented innovation, A to G innovation, it generally involves your whole team. And then the bigger kind, which I call A to X, is where you go on a quest. You don't exactly know where it's going to end up. It might be that you invent the new iPhone or invent a new app for people communicating with each other or people getting to work. You don't exactly know where it's going to go. It might involve the whole organization. If you've got a big team, you might break it up into small teams and get them to all work on the project at the same time, but with friendly competition. There's one company that does this by splitting up their team into smaller teams. They all work on their innovative quest, and then they have to pitch it like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den as a bit of a game show to pitch their idea, and then the best ideas get chosen and implemented. So just think about those three kinds of innovation. And I'm not saying you should pick one, two, one out of three. I reckon you should be looking at all three at the same time, but don't try and do too many goal-oriented innovations at the same time. I think you should only be working on, say, one 90-day project at a time, but that doesn't mean that you should stop doing any other innovation in your day-to-day work. You should be doing bit-by-bit innovation as well, and your whole organization, your whole business is probably working towards a quest. I say probably, but I really mean if you're a successful business, then you have got a quest. It's a big thing that you're working towards. So very quickly, if you look at those three areas, the bit-by-bit innovation can be, even though it seems like you're only doing little things, it can make a big difference. Team Sky, for example, which is the Tour de France, the British team that entered the Tour de France, they won the Tour de France in about 5 years ago, about 2012, by doing these little bit-by-bit innovations. So they had no chance, but what their team decided to do was just do these tiny little innovations rather than trying to do something radical, like new clothing or new bikes. So they did little things like this. So they had the water bottles or the drink bottles. They had a rule that if the drink bottle had a white top, it's water. If it had a colored top, it's an energy drink. And so it's just these little things that probably save half a second and shaves half a second off the time for a rider and the team, but all those little things added up. So don't be afraid of doing little bit-by-bit innovation, because it can make a big difference. And the second kind, as I said, is your 90-day project or your 90-day goal. So what are you doing innovation-wise for your 90-day goal? For me, for example, for this current 90 days, I've still got my speaking business. I'm doing a lot of conference speaking. I've got my business book in a box project. I've got my eGurus membership site. And those are my regular client-facing projects. But I'm also working on the business book in a box project to scale it up. So that's my 90-day innovation goal, my 90-day project. So that's my project around that. What's yours? I'm not going to ask you to share it here, but I'd like you to think about what is your big project. And then when you think about a quest, I mean, a quest can be a very big thing. It's going to take longer than 90 days. It may take years or more than a year to do, but what's your big idea? So what are you aiming towards? And this could be transforming your business. It could be transforming your industry. It could be stepping into another industry. It could be any one of these really big things that you're doing. So I'm going to stop and just ask you to think about your three things. So what are you going to do for bit-by-bit innovation? That's going to happen on a regular basis. What have you got a 90-day innovation goal? And what's your big idea? Then let me share with you while you're thinking about that and sharing it in the question box if you want to. Let me share with you one possible big innovation that's happened that I encountered recently. So I just changed my insurance company because my broker just reviewed all my insurances and he signed me up to a better deal with AIA. So I've got one of my insurances, I think TPD insurance, is with AIA, and as part of that, as part of the insurance policy, one of the benefits I get is that I get 10% off every booking with Qantas throughout the year. So every time I make a booking with Qantas, I send off the receipt to AIA and they give me a 10% cash refund, which is great. It's fantastic. But just think about the impact that has on the travel industry. So travel agents are working on margins which are quite often a lot less than 10%, and yet they're now being disrupted, or the innovations coming from completely outside their industry. It's not coming from someone inside the travel industry. It's coming from someone in the insurance industry. Just an example of how innovation from some other industry can affect yours. Okay, so give me the chance to share ideas about your 90-day project or your big idea. And you don't have to share too much because I know you may want to keep it confidential. Okay, and I will keep this anonymous. Someone says, I have an idea that's going to transform my industry. Okay, good, good. Okay, building an app, good. Okay, I can, again, I'm keeping this anonymous and you're not sharing very much about your idea, which is good because I'm not expecting you to share a lot. Okay, anything else? Oh, actually, yeah, so this is somebody else. And as one of the people on the call is actually doing this as well, building a brand, but there's somebody else who's saying changing my brand and business identity. Yeah, over the next 6 months. Okay, good. And I know there are other people here who are doing the same thing. So just the one thing to be aware of if you're doing something like a rebranding or changing identity, always think about the focus, or the external focus as well. Because sometimes brand identity can only be about an internal focus. Just make sure that you've got that you understand the reason for doing it and you've got a goal attached to what that change of brand means for you. Okay, excellent. So let's move on to the third area, the last area. And this area, I've only got one small idea, but it's a very important one. So how do you fan the flames of innovation? So you've created an environment for innovation. You are igniting a spark by the things that we talked about, like different types of innovation. And now that you've got these innovative ideas, these creative ideas flowing, how do you fan the flames? And the one thing that as a leader or manager or business owner you can do to fan the flames to fan the flames is to say yes more often. There's some research done with a company that was that the customers had lots of ideas and the staff were happy with those ideas and wanted to implement them, but management were a lot more reluctant to implement those ideas. And it's because leaders, managers, business owners, they understand the costs of it. So they understand the implications. It's taking resources away from other work. It actually has a cost. You may need new people to do it. You're thinking ahead about how to actually do it, but get the how out of your head and first of all say yes, and then figure out whether it's worth continuing with. Now, eventually, you may decide a little bit down the track that yes, this is not an idea worth pursuing, but don't say no too soon. That's the point here. So say yes to more ideas, because you'll get some good ideas and you will be able to implement them. But more importantly, you'll also get your team more encouraged because you take their ideas on board. You give them the chance to adopt them and to implement them. You give them the time and the money and the other resources they need to implement them. So that's a way to fan the flames of innovation. So that's a third part, because you want this to be continuous innovation. You don't want it just be one idea. You want to create an environment where people are innovating all the time. So in summary, those are the three things again. So create the space for innovation, ignite a spark, and that's based around different types of innovation, and then encourage people to keep innovating, so fan the flames. Any last questions or comments about that innovation, any of those three areas before we finish up? Okay, so there's a question here from Jill about what if you were a sole operator? As I've said here, like I've been talking mostly about you if you've got a team, particularly in an office to work with. And yes, most of what I've been talking about has been team oriented, but I hope you can see that some of these ideas will apply to you as well, even if you're a sole operator in your business. So apply those ideas. So I think that habit trumps discipline idea, set aside time, money, and create environments with other people who are innovative. Setting aside your bit by bit innovation, your goal-oriented innovation, and having a quest for your business, that applies. And taking ideas on board and saying yes to your own ideas is also useful because it builds momentum for yourself. So I think you can apply that for yourself. The other thing is, none of us really is a sole operator. So even if you run your business by yourself and you are your only employee, you might have outsourced freelancers that you're working with, and they're exactly the sort of people who have this diverse and varied experience. And if you give them the chance to share their ideas, rather than just being really prescriptive about the work you give them, then you can get great ideas from them as well, and you involve them in your team. Justice says, encourage people to work together. Yeah, great. Okay, and John says some great ideas there as always. Thank you. Good. So thank you for coming along. Just to finish up, just a reminder that if you complete the exit survey at the end of the webinar, then I'll send you this special report about instant innovation questions for a customer-centric world. And the next webinar in the series coming up next month is about new media literacy. It's another one of those 10 skills that the Institute for the Future identified as key skills to future-proof your career and your team and your business. So I'm going to talk about that using new media. It's not only about social media, even though there's an Instagram logo there. It's about the principles of new media so that you become better at that. Now, if you're watching this live, then you're already registered for the webinar series, so you don't need to do anything. If you're watching the recording, then go to seeingintothefuture.com and register for this webinar series. And either way, if you found this webinar interesting, please send other people along to this web address so they can register for the webinar series. We've got more than 500 people registered now for the webinars, and not everyone turns up every time, of course. We've got more than 500 people registered, and I love doing these webinars. It's very much it's something that I'm interested in doing, and I talk about these sort of topics in my keynote presentations, and I love sharing some little snippets and ideas with audiences that I can only reach through webinars. So please do send people along to this webinar series. I'd love them to come along. If you're interested in me as a speaker, then go to gihanspeaks.com. And if you've got some feedback, then you can email me as well. Just email me at gihan@gihanpereira.com. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming along and being part of this webinar. Thank you for interacting. I love the interaction, and I really enjoy presenting. And I wish you all the best in the next month for putting some of these innovation ideas into practice. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.